was 2013. The Attorney General of the great state of Florida was running for re-election. She received a big fat check in the mail that fall from New York City. It was a $25,000 check payable from the Donald J. Trump Foundation, payable to the PAC supporting the re-election campaign of Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. Now, that has become a famous donation over time, in part because of the timing when that check was sent. Right before that check arrived in the mail, the Orlando Sentinel had put up this headline: New York's Trump University lawsuit draws Florida officials' attention. At the time, in 2013, a thing that Donald Trump was running in New York, which would eventually be described by prosecutors as a major interstate fraud scheme, a thing called Trump University, it was facing a class action lawsuit over claims that Trump University had bamboozled tons of people all over the country out of their money. Pam Bondi was the Attorney General of Florida, and in that capacity, her office was thinking about having Florida join all these other states that were suing Trump University as a fraud. That was September 13th, 2013. Big headline, right? Florida might be joining the big lawsuit against Trump University. Well, it was less than a week later, September 17th, when Pam Bondi's re-election PAC got one of the biggest donations it received that cycle, that check for $25,000 from Donald J. Trump's charity, the Donald J. Trump Foundation. And then, what do you know? A few weeks after that, Pam Bondi's office in Florida decided that they had looked into it, but they wouldn't pursue a lawsuit against Trump University after all. Ta-da! And I mean, where do you want to start with that one, right? First of all, charities like the Trump Foundation can't give money to political campaigns and PACs and candidates. So that donation itself, no matter the timing, was not allowed under law. And the timing was super suspicious. And in terms of that charity, it wasn't a one-off in terms of something that looked a little hinky. Donald Trump turns out to have used his foundation for years to improperly further his own political interests and his own business interests. Last year, the Attorney General in New York filed a lawsuit accusing the president of misusing the assets of that foundation, basically operating that charity as a fraud, as another fraud. Just this week, a few days ago, President Trump had to pay $2 million as a settlement in that case. So the Trump Foundation hasn't fared well. It's gone now. Pam Bondi, on the other hand, has landed on her feet. She was recently brought to the White House to be a lawyer on the president's impeachment defense team. In order to take that role, though, and this is awkward, she had to resign from a lobbying firm she'd been working at, a firm called Ballard Partners. If that sounds at all familiar to you, it's because you might have seen headlines about Ballard Partners being one of the entities that has been subpoenaed in the criminal case that is running in federal court in New York, basically parallel to the impeachment proceedings on Capitol Hill. This is a criminal case in the Southern District of New York that involves Igor Fruman and Lev Parnas. They took part in the scheme for which President Trump will be impeached, working with Rudy Giuliani. They are charged in the Southern District of New York now with multiple felonies. And according to the New York Times, this lobbying firm that Pam Bondi worked at until like 5 minutes ago, Ballard Partners, they've been subpoenaed in that case in part because they paid thousands of dollars to Lev Parnas for some sort of business deal that appears to have coincided with the impeachment scheme. I mean, of all the lobbying firms Pam Bondi could have possibly worked for, that's the one? The firm she has to leave in order to work on Trump's impeachment defense just got subpoenaed for information about a time in which she had been working there in a criminal case related to the impeachment scandal? I mean, that's very awkward for her to be involved in the president's defense, given that. Not nearly as awkward, though, as this picture of Lev Parnas with Pam Bondi, with their arms around each other. He, of course, is the defendant, one of the defendants in that criminal case related to the impeachment scheme. And there's one of the president's defense team with him. And this is the person who the White House thinks should be working on the president's defense, and potentially one of the people who the White House wants representing him at his trial in the Senate. The person seen smiling in a picture with a defendant in the criminal case that is part of the impeachment scandal. Do they not know anybody else?